These days, it feels like we're moving so fast. There's always somewhere else we need to get to and something else we need to do. We have lists, goals, and responsibilities that are constantly nagging at us to keep going, keep moving, get on to the next thing and then the next because the list never ends. We live in a culture that worships busyness. If we're not being busy, we feel like we're being lazy. We measure our success by what we accomplished today, how much we got done, what we crossed off the list. We think that the faster we move and the more we get done, the better off we'll be. But what if that's not true? What if the truth is that this way of living actually comes with a massive price tag? You see, the faster you go, the faster time flies, and the more it feels like you have no time and like you're always behind. The faster you go, the more you miss as you rush through your life trying to get where? Enter the slow living movement. The slow living movement emerged in the 1980s and 90s directly from the slow food movement, which began in Italy and emphasized traditional local food production techniques in response to the emerging popularity of fast food. People found themselves wanting to recapture a more authentic and mindful relationship with their food, and that naturally expanded to them wanting to recapture the same kind of relationship with their time. Slow living is a way of being in the world that is thoughtful, intentional, mindful, and deliberate. When we slow down, time slows down and expands. We feel more content with what we have and where we are. We're more creative. We give our brain the time and space to connect dots that it might otherwise miss. We're able to learn and grow in new ways because we get out of autopilot and are able to see the world differently. We feel more calm and at peace. We're kinder to ourselves and maybe to others. We enjoy life more and are able to ride whatever waves it sends our way. So, what does it actually look like to slow down? And how can we begin to invite more of this slow living into our own day-to-day lives so that we can experience and enjoy all the benefits that it has to offer? Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you 12 tips for living a slower life, even if you're busy. So grab a pen and a notebook, maybe make yourself a cup of tea. You can pause the video now and come back if you need to. And let's explore these tips together. Tip number 1 is to physically slow down. Did you know that your brain is often taking cues for how to function based on how your body is moving? That's right. When we move quickly, rushing here and there, speeding through one task and then another, our brain assumes that there's a good reason for that. So it works to match that pace by speeding up our thoughts, narrowing our focus, and releasing stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol to help us move even faster. So, in order to slow down your busy brain and enjoy more peace and calm, try moving your body more slowly, literally slowing down your regular movements. Pick up your coffee cup slowly, walk up the stairs slowly, wash the dishes slowly, pet your dog or your cat slowly. If you're like me and you speak quickly, try to talk a little more slowly when you're chatting with your partner or a friend or even a stranger at the grocery store. You can also think about eating slowly. Take smaller forkfuls or spoonfuls, chewing more slowly, taking a little more time between bites, taking time to notice the smells and tastes of your food. Even think about breathing more slowly. Try taking some slow, deep belly breaths, elongating and balancing out your inhales and exhales. This is all going to require some conscious focus to accomplish, since if you're like most people, your default pace for moving around the world is fast. That's what feels familiar. That's what feels comfortable. But as you slow your physical movements in this way, you're going to notice that your busy mind and racing thoughts begin to slow down in response. Tip number 2 is to do one thing at a time. The constant companion of busyness is multitasking. The more we feel like we're falling behind, the more we strive to double or triple the number of tasks we're doing in a given time. This is the opposite of slow living, and it actually makes us less focused, less efficient, and less productive. Your brain cannot physically do more than one thing at a time. So when you think you're multitasking, you're actually just trying to switch from task to task to task as quickly as possible. This is why multitasking always leads to feelings of stress, anxiety, and overwhelm. So, to invite in more slow living, try doing just one thing at a time. Pick one task you want to accomplish, do nothing but that task, and then when it's completed or when you've taken it as far as you can for today, then, and only then, move on to the next task. Your brain will keep trying to pull you towards other tasks, but I encourage you to practice resisting that habit. Don't think about the next thing. Just think about this thing that you're doing right now. Tip number 3 is to do something that takes too much time. How often have you thought that you might like to do something, but then quickly pushed it to the back burner because you said to yourself, oh, that'll just take too much time? As you work on living a slower life, I encourage you to seek out things that take too much time. Start thinking about a big project. Start learning something new that you know nothing about. Opt for the long way around instead of the shortcut. Many years ago, my mom was visiting for a few days. We both loved to cook, but had both fallen into the common rut of repeating the same handful of recipes again and again. We decided to crack open my cookbooks and choose a recipe that on any normal day we would definitely have passed over because it would take too much time. We ended up spending that whole afternoon together in my kitchen making chicken pot pie from scratch. We made the pastry, we roasted the chicken, we made the sauce, we chopped the vegetables, and we assembled the whole thing. It's one of my favorite memories with her, and I owe it all to choosing the path that took too much time. Tip number 4 is to stop trying to fill your day. Do you do this? Maybe you happily discover that your calendar is completely empty on a Saturday or Sunday, and as quickly as you felt the joy of having all that free space and time, you start trying to fill it. Maybe I should just call so-and-so and see if they want to meet for lunch. Or I could just run out to the store and exchange those pants I've been meaning to take back. Stop! When you find that you have some open space in your day or your week, resist the urge to fill it. Of course, we all have errands and tasks and responsibilities we need to consider, but try to notice the difference between using your time wisely and just trying to fill your day. Remember that taking time for slowing down and doing nothing might be the most important item on your to-do list. And this flows perfectly into tip number 5, which is to protect white space in your day or week. As I touched on in tip number 4, most of us have a habit of filling our day. If we have a few hours unaccounted for, we immediately start to think about what we could slot in there, what else we could get done. I really encourage you to practice reprogramming that habit by fiercely protecting what I call white space in your day or your week. White space is time when you have no plans, nowhere to be, nothing to do. It's like a blank canvas. Now, don't panic thinking that having no plans and nowhere to be and nothing to do means you spend that time staring at a blank wall in silence, unless that sounds enjoyable, in which case go for it. White space just means that there's no pressure or expectations on that time. There's nothing you have to get done or accomplish. During that white space time, you can just follow your intuition. Do what feels good. Take a nap, read a book, repot a plant, bake muffins. No plan, no list. Whatever happens is perfect. Now, given our habits and tendencies for filling our time, multitasking, and always striving to get more done, it's highly unlikely that white space is just going to appear in your calendar. You will probably need to plan it and protect it. Now, if you're the kind of person who likes to plan out your week ahead, that would be a great time to think about where you could find and protect some white space. Maybe it's 30 minutes every morning when you get up. Maybe it's an hour in the evening before bed. Maybe it's your entire Sunday. Whatever works for you, just make sure you're protecting that white space and resisting the urge to fill it or let others fill it for you. And that brings me directly to tip number 6, which is to start your day slowly and mindfully. It's great to protect any white space that you can in your day or your week. But if possible, I encourage you to think about having part of that protected space in the morning. There is something extra magical about starting your day in a state of slow mindfulness. Moving slowly, taking your time as you enter the day, noticing the world around you, calming your racing thoughts. When you start your morning this way, I promise you that it will have a powerful effect on how you act, move, and feel for the rest of your day. Tip number 7 is to set hard boundaries around screens and apps. Most websites, and certainly most apps, especially the shopping and social media apps, are all intentionally designed to trigger the release of dopamine in your brain, which makes you feel compelled to keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Sure, some of these apps and platforms can be fun, but you rarely leave them feeling peaceful and rested. So, a really good way to start living a slower life is to set hard boundaries for yourself around how and when you're using screens and apps. You can have a timer that reminds you to turn off screens at a certain time. You can set limits on your phone for certain apps so that you can only use them at certain times of the day and not at others. I've found that the screen time feature that's built right into my iPhone helps me enormously. I've set it up to automatically restrict my access to almost all apps between the hours of 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. This protects me from myself by helping me curb my social media scrolling habit. Tip number 8 is to have no expectations. Frustration comes from unmet expectations. We create an idea in our heads for how a situation will unfold. If reality ends up matching, we're happy. If reality ends up being something different, we're frustrated. So, if you expect to wait in line for 10 minutes and you wait for 8, you're happy. If you expect to wait in line for 2 minutes and you wait for 8, you're frustrated. Both times you waited for 8 minutes. The only difference was your expectation. For this reason, expectations can be dangerous. They can quickly rob us of our sense of peace and joy. So, as part of living more slowly, practice letting go of expectations. When you wake up with a new day stretching before you, try letting go of any expectations you may gravitate towards. It's fine to have an intention for what you'd like to work on and accomplish today, but try setting your intention, moving in that direction, and then allowing things to unfold as they will. Tip 9 is to putter. I love puttering. Puttering is when your to-do list meets your total lack of expectations. When you have a to-do list and then also have expectations about getting it all done in a certain way and in a certain amount of time, you are inviting pressure, stress, anxiety, and overwhelm. You're basically guaranteeing that you'll be rushing around like a chicken with its head cut off, trying to meet all your expectations around your list. However, if you have a to-do list, but you practice releasing any expectations around it, now you get to putter. Maybe you think to yourself, today I'd like to start decluttering that packed linen closet. And that's it. No expectations around how much you'll get done today, or how long it'll take, or doing any of the other tasks that might result, like donating used linens or mending something you want to keep. You're just puttering. And puttering feels so much more relaxing and enjoyable than trying to accomplish something and having expectations around that. Tip 10 is to take a little longer with a task. Fast living means we're always trying to do things as quickly as possible so we can get on to the next thing and get more done. As you build some new habits around living more slowly, I encourage you to resist those old habits by taking a little longer with some tasks than you might normally do. If you're watering the plants, decluttering a drawer or a cupboard, washing the dishes, making a cup of tea, tending to your garden, slow down. Take your time with it. Move slowly, breathe deeply, notice things you might otherwise have missed, appreciate things you might otherwise have ignored. If you slow down and take your time, every action becomes an opportunity for exploration and delight. Yes, even washing the dishes. And that brings me naturally to tip 11, which is to try to notice things you might normally miss. Our busy lives require us to be singularly and narrowly focused on accomplishing our tasks. There is no time to stop and smell the roses. And you miss so much of the wonder of life this way. The world around you is deep, rich, complex, and layered. There's so much to see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and feel delighted by. But if we're rushing and racing, we miss it all. So, as you explore slow living, try to see and notice things that you might normally look right past. How does the coffee mug feel in your hands? What does the water sound like as you pour it into your glass? How many shades of green can you see in the tree outside your window? What are all the words you can think of to describe the way the peach you're eating tastes? And now we've come to our final tip, and maybe the most important if you truly want to enjoy a slower life. Tip number 12 is to practice slowing down. For most of us, slow living is not our default state. We've spent most of our lives practicing fast living, making to-do lists, multitasking, rushing, being busy, getting stuff done. This is now how our brains are wired. If we want to start to slow down a bit so that we can enjoy the peace, calm, and joy that can bring, we need to start building some new habits, some new neural pathways around this different approach to life. And that can only be done through practice. Practice shifting out of autopilot. Practice doing things more slowly. Practice each of the other 11 tips I've shared here with you today. Practice regularly. It could be a few minutes every day, or maybe you practice this one day every week, whatever works for you. Just make sure you practice consistently so that over time, living a slower pace of life, one that allows space and time for peace, joy, and creativity, does become your new default. Life is short, and the faster you move, the faster it goes by. You have the power to slow it down, to expand your perception and experience of time, not by doing more, but by doing less. It goes against everything we're taught about how to be a good worker and a good consumer, but it also just might be the key to a life of more joy, peace, and happiness. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was useful. Let me know in the comments below what stood out to you about slow living and how you think you might be able to invite more of it into your life. If you think this video might be useful to someone else you know, please share it. It would mean the world to me. Thanks again, and I will see you right back here next week.